Hi there. So hopefully there's a few of you out there. Sorry for being a bit late. I'm just having my internet seems to be playing up a little bit this morning. Um, I don't know whether perhaps if someone could just say hi in the chat room, that would be good in the chat box, just to let me know it's coming across. That would be great because it's saying I can't connect to chat. Please try later. Ah, oh, yeah, actually, no, I can see you now. Here we go. Yeah, excellent. Hi, Alison, Teresa, Stuart. Excellent, Ellie. Yeah, great. Good. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. Okay, so we'll make a start. Yeah, so had some nice work handed in, and yeah, some good bits and pieces. I've been up at my studio. Really at the moment actually I'm just tidying up, but I've got a couple of projects for the weekend. I'm hoping to make a start on a painting of the Lake District, for a friend of mine, which should be a good challenge. And I put up something because there's been a great project of people volunteering to do portraits of people in the NHS. So I watched the video and I thought it was a really great idea, and lots of other artists have been offering this. So I put that up on my Facebook, and I have had one reply. So hopefully I'm gonna, if I get some good reference, make a start on that as well. But like a lot of these things, with painting, I say it's not just the painting that's the skill. Another one is having all your stuff organized, and so when you go to your studio you don't have to search around for everything. So that's really what I've been working on, this week, and I had a bit of a tidy up behind me, although it probably doesn't look like it, but again just sort of trying to get that all sort of sorted out. So but yeah, I enjoyed doing it was good to do the demonstration painting up at the studio, so I was pleased with that. So hopefully that'll be the format now. So I think what we'll do is, we will go into Photoshop and see what people have sent in. So let's just go back one. So this is starting with Stuart. Stuart's been out, walking around, sort of near where he lives, and had a few nice reference photos. I don't think I managed to get all the photos, but this was one of them. And let's see. And it was nice to see Stuart's also come up with a list of some of the ideas that perhaps might be themes for him to go into a bit deeper, I think that's great, is to find something and then see if you can go into it. Sort of just, an example is, like, for example, one view, like Monet and his haystacks, one view might be a subject, or just trees, or just houses. Picking these sorts of subjects and sticking with them for a while can be a really good way to get into something and let an idea develop. So Stuart sent in this and this one. So let's have a look at this. This is really nice, a really nice drawing. And yeah, I mean, um, it's taken from quite a high. Here's our horizon line, and we can see these two lines of the bridge. They look to me like they would converge. Let's say. Okay, so they converge up there, that's right. But that's really the key to this particular composition, is getting that perspective right, and all these other lines down here. So you can see with this line, maybe this is what's sort of perhaps bothering me slightly is this line here and this line here. Okay, they go to a vanishing point there. Okay, so I think maybe with this one it might be worth, Stuart, perhaps actually just drawing out the perspective, maybe even doing it formally with a ruler and putting a dot where your vanishing point is, and then making sure that all these lines are sort of going towards that same vanishing point. So that might be quite good. The other little thing I would say about this, let's see, okay, is to make the distinction between a thumbnail sketch and a more finished drawing. And obviously there's, you put some colour in this, so it's starting to nudge a little bit more towards a finished drawing. Okay, so when you're doing your thumbnails, think in these terms. Think firstly in terms of tonal in terms of your drawing. So that's what I mean. Get the bridge right. Get all these fences. Get that as accurate as possible. And then think a little bit more about tonal values. So I see you've introduced some colour here, but and although we've got a dark tree, if we go black and white, okay. Now, if I just look at it black and white, it's still a little bit perhaps samey, okay. And that's one of the things I've been trying to encourage you to sort of to deliberately play with, okay. So if I do a little bit here, just to perhaps show you the thought, the thinking process. So in a scene like this, we can normally establish the tree is going to be quite a dark shape. Okay. Okay. So so in this case, we've got a nice sort of bluish sky. So that would be like, so this vertical mass of trees is going to be more of a mid value. Okay. Now I'm going to do this very rough just to sort of try and show you the thinking. Okay, so that's going to be mid value. And then we get an overlap here. So it's just going to come on that side. Fade darker. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, that's going to be, now not that, perhaps not that top rail, because that's going to catch the light, but the overall feel of this fence is going to be dark. Something like that. Okay. Now what we can look at it, well, we can say this is water. So water tends to be light. So in order for the water to read, we'll surround that by mid value. Okay. So we're going to make that shoreline a bit darker there. Something like that. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to reduce the amount of light in the picture. Okay. So even going a little, but introducing a little bit more tonal variation. I think that's going to be your key. And again, you don't have to labour over that and make it really big. You can just sort of try and understand that at these smaller thumbnail sort of levels. Okay. So let's see, buffering. Arthur Wesley Dow, I think that's his name. Yeah. No, I think the buffering might either be coming from my end because my internet's a bit slow today, or it could be your end. But yep, Simple Secret to Better Painting is good. The Notan book is quite an old-fashioned book, and it's a bit hard work, but it's probably the main book that I think of in terms of Notan. So if I put Arthur, Arthur Wesley Dow. Yep. So if you look him up, he wrote the book on Notan, which I think is a Japanese term. So, and the simple secret to better painting, what does that say? Well, that says that you should have it. It should be mostly one thing. So if we go back, let's see. When you make a compositional arrangement, oh, sorry about that. Sorry. When you make a compositional arrangement, it should be mostly one thing, i.e. dark. So perhaps this is a bit better, dark tree. So it's mostly light, some grey, and then a bit of dark. But you don't want it to be too even. Okay, so that's a great book as well, Simple Secret to Better Painting. Okay, but yeah, very nice study there, Stuart. Again, here we've got a good, nice use of perspective. The only thing perhaps compositionally I'm not too sure about with this one is our eye, we're pulled through, which is good, and then our eye zigzags this way. I think though we've got a very strong horizontal with this fence. Okay, now it's not exactly clear whether there's a gate here, or I'm not sure I've got the reference photo, but yeah, so again, there's a strange thing in painting whereby if you draw fences, it almost acts like a barrier to the eye. So I read once that if you draw, for example, in the foreground a fence with a gate in, make the gate slightly open, then at least you feel like you can walk through. Okay, so it's a bit here, we come through and we reach this little bit. So these are all these questions about how much do you use what's there and how much do you alter it. Okay, but again, that's a nice, very nice little study, that. And then, so was that, there's our reference, and there's Stuart's version of it. Let's see. Oh no, that's Teresa's. So again, yeah, this works well. First thing that comes to mind, let's see, if we pick that. So I'd be tempted to make this tree, make the tree a bit darker. Okay, and the reason for that is it helps to push the rest of the image, the rest of the painting back. So a bit darker there. Okay, and then maybe you can have the fence sort of read against it. So I like this this handling of the fence here is good because the shadows break it up. So again, and it's also on a diagonal, so it's pulling our eye round. So when we look at this, our tree is definitely a dark shape against light. And we've got this band of light here, but I think effectively the horizon line is a mid value. So you've got a mid value with a dark tree. Okay. Which, yeah, you've got that somewhat, but let's. So I would make that a bit, just to make it read a bit clearer. Okay. And then with the water, so the water, okay, water, if you look at it in relation to the sky, it's definitely more of a mid value. Okay, so this is what I mean by the darks of the tree become slightly lighter in the water, and the light of the sky becomes a bit darker. So basically the tones, they stay quite close together, and that's how you get the effect of the water. So in this case, So there it is. It's harder to see when you've got the colour on it. Okay. So there, something like that, and it's perhaps just a bit darker at the base there. Okay. So that's a little bit of a crude shading in. I think what I'm asking you to do is perhaps just be a bit more, once you've established this is dark, this is mid-value, this is light, don't be subtle about it, okay? Try to get your pencil to get those full range of tones. So on to Teresa. Teresa's done a really nice, lots of little sketches here. So, and she got some nice reference material which she sent me, but unfortunately I can't open it in Photoshop at the moment. So but yeah, some great pictures, and here we see, so this is nice also to see the workings out. And again, this is quite nice where you sort of, if you can look at your reference and then perhaps write about it, make some notes. Round up. So skylarks, windy, yeah, good, all little notes. So we can see here a very clear S composition, okay? So it's a great example of what we've been talking about in terms of armatures, in that you can definitely see the S. And she's also observed something nice here, which is that our sky value in this one is much more mid value. In fact, that might have even gone a bit darker. Okay, so there's a good trick, which is a dark sky like that. Now that even blue is relatively dark. It has the effect of making the lights on the ground really sort of illuminate, like it's catching the light, okay? So in this case, maybe even darker in the river. If you squint your eyes, basically the river is the darkest sort of mass, apart from perhaps the trees back here. Okay, and again, making that a bit darker makes these lights pop out. So a few little bits there, maybe a bit there. So in this case, what have we got? So it's mostly mid-value, because I would say that's mid-value. The grasses are all mid-value, okay? Let's make that mid-value. Okay, and then there's darks. There's some darks, quite a bit of dark with the river and the tree mass back here. And then just a little bit of light on these bits here. So again, you could increase the effect perhaps just by decreasing the light, maybe letting it catch just in a smaller area like that. So lessening the light maybe, and you might get a more dramatic effect. Maybe darkening this as well. Okay, so this is where that principle will help, okay? Lessening the lights, and then that makes what you do have a bit more dramatic, and then you could almost reflect that in the water. Okay, but yeah, very nice study, that one. Let's just see. Okay, so some other good ones here. So again, my only perhaps I like these little thumbnails, but they're very so between doing a very finished, accurate drawing and doing a sort of like a little sketch like this, I think you need to perhaps just push the finish just ever so slightly more. But this is almost like a thumbnail for a thumbnail, is that you're just establishing things. So here we've got good various trunk widths. That's nice. Yeah, variety. Variety is what makes these sorts of scenes interesting. This is also, I like this one with a nice few clear foreground trees. You've got your perspective overlap Okay. These sort of horizontals and the perspective lines all really help to create that feeling of going off into the distance. And it's not overly it's basically mid value with some lights of the trees up here. So it's definitely, that's good. The trouble with when you're in woods is often you can just be overloaded with visual information. So I really like these good reference photos. And here we are. Let's see. Let's crop that up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, and this is a good one. Bright blue sky and reflection. Yeah. So again, this is a nice observation, which is basically where you have wet mud or the still water. If the sky is blue, you're going to see blue, and of course it's really nice to be able to bring the blue from the sky into the lower half of your picture. What it does in this composition though is it means, well, we don't have any light really on the water. The water becomes mainly a mid value. Which isn't, that's not bad, but that light, so if we look at this one, if you were sort of simplifying the composition, you've got dark up here, light on the tops of the grass, and this all becomes mid value. And the only possible problem with that is that the light on the grass would perhaps compete, because basically the light tends to create interest, and there's some subtlety there, in terms of like trying to distinguish between this, which is a mud sort of bank, and the actual water itself. That's all quite subtle, but it's definitely a good S. So brings our eye around. So yeah, very nice. Okay, another nice one here. So we've got, this is more like this is what something like what Teresa's put an S. I think of this almost a bit like an L though, because we've got this like strong vertical and then the horizontal dark, and that then creates a sort of like a framing device where we go through and we see this tree and these bits of interest in the distance there. But also, I mean, that's not to say there isn't an S, but that's what strikes me first all about it. And so, yeah, we've got a nice zigzag in here, up there, around there. So that's good. So again, though, tonally, you've got light mass in the sky. Everything else is like mid-value with darks. So with these little thumbnails, that tonal pattern hasn't perhaps quite been established. So let's see. So basically I would have that is dark. That's mid value. So you see, by doing that, I've now got a light sky. You see, without it, it's just, it's one thing. And then basically making this dark. And that nice where it cuts across there. So that's how I would sort of see the composition in that would be my like simple thumbnail sketch, maybe with some little bits there. Obviously this is a bit of a clumsy brush tool there, but so yeah, so I would just again be a bit more thorough with the tonal working out. Okay, let's see. Good. Then so another one here, this is nice. I like the foreground, dark foreground. Nice sense of these overlaps, that overlaps, then that overlaps. From a painting point of view, this area here, yeah, delicate. Yeah, it's we've got dark here to light, so that might be just perhaps a bit more challenging. But again, you've got light coming from the side, and these trees here cast shadows across there, and the light is really sort of so this would all be a lot darker, I think. All that dark, 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 and then we've got light in the middle, which again is just a nice sort of pulls our eye through. Maybe just going a bit. So this is quite nice if you can keep the light sort of down in the, perhaps in the center here, so we sort of go through. That's perhaps what I'd be thinking. But you can see now we're sort of starting to think of these lights, darks, mid values as, you know, these are compositional elements, and that's the main thing, how they work together. So if I knock that grass back a bit, and that also helps make that a bit lighter. But yeah, views where you're looking through to light, that's quite a nice, that's a good compositional device there. Oh, and this is good as well, just looking at all the overlaps. So yeah, good. Good stuff. More Teresa's. Very good. Nice to see, you know, this is how you improve, is to do, the more you do, the more you sort of you know, you pick up momentum, so that's good. Here with the tonal study, you can probably guess what I'm going to say now, which is that this this area with the grass, even though we get a distinction between the shadow of the grass and the light of the grass, the overall effect is much more mid-value. So this all basically would go down to a mid-value, leaving light at the top there. Okay, so remember, our tendency is we see this relationship of shadow and light, and then we overstate that contrast. Okay, but that's why you have to always be squinting and trying to take in the thing as a whole. But if we knock that all down, then it's much clearer that that's our light source. And again, this is another sort of tunnel-like composition where we're looking through to light like that, you see? And that's really nice. Yeah, so it's good. Right, what have we got now? Ah, this is Val's. So Val sent this in. This looks like her garden. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the contrast slightly so we can, just because it's, okay, a bit more contrast. There we go. So we can see what's going on there. There were a few things here. So there's a bit of an issue, Val, with your perspective, okay? So remember, one of the things that you want to do is try to, in your mind's eye, you're trying to imagine where is your eye level, okay? So if we go, we use a slightly smaller brush, okay? So if we look at this shed here, okay, these lines are going up, so that means it's below, and these ellipses tell us that they're below our eye level. And then I think when we get to about here, it sort of flattens off. Okay, so let's, for the sake of the exercise, let's imagine our horizon line is about there. Okay. Now we've got some odd things here. So this line, oh, this line comes down, but this line is going up. Okay, this line is also going up. This line and this line, which they would be parallel, is going down. So I think that's what's happening there is all those things are sort of suggesting different vanishing points. So you need to, first of all, when you're looking at your view, try and work out where your eye level is, and then try to make all those lines relatively consistent. So with let's see. So yeah, with this thing here, you sort of want to work out. Oh, you want to work out, am I looking? I'm underneath it, so I'm looking up. So this seems better here, where you can see the underside of it. Okay. Um, but those are some points. But what I do really like about this is you've got light hitting the side of these in here, these sort of plant pots, and that helps on the toned paper. That's giving us a sense of form. Now, if we wanted to be really consistent with that, what you could do is you could say, well, if the light's coming from the side, like from the side here, then this should cast a shadow. Okay, so that's going to cast some sort of shadow that way. And this one is going to cast a shadow this way. Okay. Now the light comes from the side, so it hits the side of that building. So we're probably going to have a bit more shadow here. Okay, and then a bit more there. So that now might help give a sense that the light's hitting the side of that building. Okay, so this might be darker there. See, light hits the side of that building, so maybe that side goes a bit darker. If you see what I'm doing, what I'm really doing is I'm sort of mainly adding a bit more dark to it. But everything I'm doing is to try and help explain the way that light is falling on your objects. So that's what I would do next time. But yeah, very nice drawing that. So Rick, thanks for sending it in. Let's see, next. So we've got some, Alison sent me some of her reference photos. Now this is, I mean, these are very nice and very atmospheric. Let's see. So Orford Lighthouse. There's another one. I really like this one. I think she's done this in her thumbnails. She did this one. So what I like about this is that the light is on the land. So this, what's going on in the sky doesn't compete. This creates like a spotlight of colour and interest. And then it means that the boat, it's not starkly lit up against a bright sort of light sky. It's subdued, and I think that creates, it's got a great sense of atmosphere, that one. So yeah, I like that. Okay, and so here's Alison's thumbnails. So as we can see, so this is good. So she's trying out different arrangements here. As you can see here, we've got a light lighthouse against a dark sky, which is good. Okay, and then we've got the silhouetted lighthouse against the light sky. So I think that's it. That's really nice, is to see those workings out. You could also maybe let's see if we go back to. So with this one, let's see, you could come up with different crops. So maybe you could have something like that, maybe. And okay, maybe less. See, it's a bit half and half. That's the only thing. So we could make it mostly sky with just a little bit of land. Something like that maybe. So remember, you're looking for variety. So, or you could make it mostly land, maybe cropping the, and less about the sky. Something like that. So all these little adjustments will create different different moods, different atmospheres. Okay, so it's just a case of playing around with these. I quite like this, perhaps this one. Maybe that's a bit low. Something like that maybe. Perhaps with that diagonal there emphasized. But you can do this using L-shaped pieces of card. So if you get to print out, or most phones, I say, will have that cropping device on them. But play around with the images and just, yeah, see it as play. So if we increase the contrast, you know, we get perhaps that sort of stronger tonal thing. Of course, you don't get your red there. It just becomes almost black and white. So, and again, also think about maybe that's a bit too, the overall mood here starts to become a bit more cheerful. And that wasn't, in a way, cheerful isn't really Orford Ness. So perhaps, so if we take away that, in fact, if I was to desaturate it further, almost black and white, or different hues, maybe purples. Again, you can get away with that in a painting, you see, not so much in a photograph. But again, yeah, playing with all those elements, trying to think what helps create the mood. This is really nice with the sort of shadow here. I think that's a shadow, or it might just be the sea with the bank there. But again, you've got a mid-tone composition, mid-tone with a light hitting on that. So that creates a very clear focal point with these strange little dots and buildings. That's, you know, that's nice, that. So, yeah, so there Alison's workings out. Yep, so very good. They're the sort of thing, actually. The only thing maybe I would perhaps just be, these could be just, you could take one and make it perhaps a little bit bigger if you were going to prepare for a painting. Okay, so you're just trying to work through those problems before you get to your painting stage. Right, and here we are. This is Phil's, to see if there's any questions. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Munnings, yeah. Very good. So here's Phil, based on Edward Weston. This is like a master sort of study, and really good stuff here. The sky. Now the sky is a bit subtle, but it's definitely moving in the right direction there, Phil. And subtle is good for the sky. Maybe that could be a little bit more yellow. Just the contrast with some of those bits. It's probably dried a bit lighter than it might have originally gone on. But we've got a nice scale here, nice handling of the legs there, and the figures are well done. And we've also got this very effective sense of depth here with the overlap of this mass of like buildings with the sort of church silhouette. So again, see, this really helps to illustrate the power of good silhouettes. And you've got your pier there. And as you can see, overall, it's quite almost monochrome. So it's not really relying on colour so much as tonal values to create depth. Especially, and we've got this nice cast shadow in the foreground. So yeah, very good. Good study that. with watercolor painting, even more so than oils, I think it's important to go through the process of the thumbnails and establish these tonal values. So you could reverse this. You could actually have, say, the light catching the church and then make the sky really dark. So you could play around with different tonal values for different effects. So that's Phil's. Now Ellie sent us a few. Here we go. So this is one. Felix Stowe. This is the dip, yeah. And so I can recognise that. Not the easiest of subjects, I think that's fair to say. Trying to get all these buildings here in perspective and all these sea defences. So you may, Ellie, have an issue there with you know, think of Monet. Think of Phil's here with the Wesson one. You see how simple it is. Okay, you've got one silhouette, two silhouettes, three silhouettes, and then the people. So with a view like this, you end up really with like possibly hundreds of separate buildings, and so it just becomes a lot more of a complex task. So that might just be something to consider. Now, this is what I would call like a study. So you're out there and it looks, you know, you're drawing the object. So it's not perhaps quite a thumbnail study yet. Now this is really nice here. So we can definitely see things starting to work a bit better with this one. So again, though, the to stop it being a thumbnail, it's quite a precise drawing. So again, it has more the quality of the study than the thumbnail. So we'll just look at the other one. I'll try and adjust one and just show you what I've got in mind. Okay, yeah, so this is good as well. But I mean, I know from having gone down there myself that these things all do create challenges with perspective. But it looks like, I mean, I can see you've got the gist of it. So what I would ask you to do next time is maybe make slightly smaller studies with a little bit more focus on tonal values. So because it's you see the drawing of these very complex things that really does work best as a study, but for your paintings you want these more simpler tonal arrangements. So with this one, that's a bit harsh. So now I'm going to assume that that's the sort of land mass. Okay, so if we make all that a bit darker. Now it's not really dark because the light's still hitting it. Now the light would hit the tops of these, so they would perhaps go darker down there. Okay, but we've still got those, the tops of those being illuminated. And then if we darken that, okay, then you've got some light. You could have some light, for example, hit the edge of that Martello tower, which might be quite nice. But darkening that background would have a bit more to play against. Okay, and then we'll just exaggerate something just to show you. So let's say it's a stormy day, or you could have the sea as actually darker than that land mass. Let's say something like that. Okay, then that actually becomes more illuminated. but that would also be picked up maybe in this reflection. Something like that. But you'd have to play around with these. Maybe this would be better to be dark, actually. Dark against mid value. So you don't have to add colour, but again add tone, and you're just trying to do tone to create effects. This won't really make sense until you've got more suggestion of water. And these don't have to be strictly, you know, they don't have to be 100%. But you see now we create a little bit more. In fact, if we go a bit darker with that shadow side, that creates that more as a focal point, okay? But again, this area in the foreground is quite busy, so you would have to perhaps simplify that or knock it back somewhat. Okay, good. Well, let's see. Yeah, so same with all of those. So what you could do is, once you've created your pencil drawing study, you could just do a few, you could do washes of Payne's grey or something, and just start to try and get these tonal values. But you'll probably find it easier and more enjoyable to do if you work quite small, just small little studies in a sketchbook, as opposed to this looks more like perhaps A4 or quite a large drawing. So okay, oh, and that was Stuart's tonal reference. So there we go. So that's all everyone's today. So so that's really good start. So I think what we'll do is next week I'll talk a little bit more about some of these armatures and perhaps give some examples of how to look for them, and then that will give you a theme for the week. Okay, so you've got your other themes, which might be forests or fields or Felixstowe, or and then if I give you the armature, hopefully then you can go and look for specific compositions that use that armature. So that's really what I've got in mind. Okay, so there we go. So for those of you that are zooming, we'll do Zoom at about 11:05. Okay, but for the rest of you, I hope you found that useful. Remember to like the video, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Really what I've got in mind. Okay. So there we go. So for those of you that are zooming, we'll do Zoom at about 11:05. Okay, but for the rest of you, I hope you found that useful. Remember to like the video, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks.